like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see.
Hello Exiles, and welcome to my Smite Crit Trickster build guide. This build guide is geared towards players who are new to the build or players who have an existing build and want to scale up their DPS. This build uses the skill Smite of Divine Judgement along with the sword Ephemeral Edge and the shield Aegis Aurora. The goals for this build are pretty simple. We want something that has high DPS, something that's tanky and doesn't keep dying a lot, something that's affordable within the 10 to 30 div budget, and something that has very good map clear, something that's fun, decent bossing, and good DPS without Merc. So this is very important because there are a lot of builds that are coming out nowadays that absolutely rely on your Merc, and when your Merc dies, it does 0 DPS. I think this is a very bad build design, and I'll aim to compensate for that in this build. And lastly, and most importantly, to give you good DPS without investing 100, 200, 300 div like streamers do. The DPS stats achieved by this build are pretty good with and without Mercenary, and we have high crit, which is 70% crit chance and more than 500% crit multi, and we have 4 power charges, which also helps us get 4 curses with a multi-curse setup, and it is a single button build which makes it easy to use. I personally have the attack skill on my spacebar, and it works well with Headhunter or Mageblood. I use Headhunter and it's amazing. On the defensive side, I always like to make builds that are tanky and don't keep dying all the time. So this allows you to level up much easier, and this also allows your build to be much stronger in general. So this is not a glass cannon build. We invest heavily in defensives. We have 70% attack block, 50% spell block, almost capped spell suppression. We get 90% physical damage reduction from the skill tree and from our gear, and 80% all resistances without using any weird stuff. So this setup allows me to go AFK in T17 maps and even kill T17 map bosses deathless. It has a high amount of regen and a high amount of leech. So these two act as a very strong defensive layer. It also has a lot of skills that auto trigger. We have Tempest Shield, which retaliates on block, and we have General's Cry, which kind of spawns little minions that attack nearby enemies. So even if you're AFK, there are other skills that are kind of protecting you. With this build, we are immune to many different effects without needing a Mageblood, and I think this is very important for endgame mapping, T16, T16.5, T17s, because they have a lot of effects that hurt you all the time. And so the more effects you are immune against, the less you're going to die and the better gameplay experience you'll have. The first and most important immunity, I think, is our critical strike immunity, which comes from a mastery. Now, since we are hitting enemies, we mark them automatically on hit, and marked enemies cannot deal critical strikes to us. Now, at any time, we can have only one active mark, but the mark automatically goes on like the biggest enemy, like a unique enemy or a mini boss or a boss. So this means that any major enemy, like map bosses, T17 map bosses, Ubers, cannot deal critical strikes. So effectively, we are critical strike immune. So we are chaos immune, poison immune, curse immune, immune to all elemental ailments from a single jewel, and we are immune to many different ground effects, not all the ground effects but many ground effects, and even corrupted blood immune. So this means that if you find an altar in the map that says, you are scorched, you can easily pick that altar because you're immune to it. And lastly, we are immune to any movement speed debuffs. For example, the T17 Citadel's map boss has a debuff called Glimpse of Infinity, which he casts on you, when he shoots the laser. So that typically reduces your movement speed, your action speed, and everything goes really slow and you can't attack. Now this build, due to the Ascendancy, is immune from any such debuff that affects your movement speed because we have a fixed movement and action speed. We have all 3 charges on this build. We have power charge on crit, which is linked to one of our skill gems called Tempest Shield, and we almost always have power charges. We have frenzy charge and endurance charge on block through the skill tree, and we have onslaught, which improves our attack speed and move speed from a flask. In this build, our main sources of damage are the skill Smite of Divine Judgement, which is your main attack skill that you'll use, but that only constitutes 80% of your damage. The remaining 20% comes from our supporting skills Tempest Shield and General's Cry. Tempest Shield automatically retaliates. When monsters attack you, it retaliates and it hits them with lightning damage, and this also generates our power charges. We have General's Cry, which is a 4-link, and it creates these little minions, these mirage warriors that run around, and they attack monsters with Blade Flurry. So initially you may not have these gems, and that's fine, but you must understand that a significant portion of your DPS comes from these supporting skills, right? So it's like a 3-skill build rather than a 1-skill build, but it is a 1-button build because you don't have to manually trigger these other 2 supporting skills. So I'm going to be very upfront about the build cost. Unlike streamers who spend upwards of 200 div on their build and then show it off, and then you try to remake it, with a lower budget, and then the whole build collapses. So this is to prove to you that even with a lower budget, you can achieve a very strong, high DPS and tanky build. Now that we've finished off the basics, let's understand all the effects. How are we Chaos and Poison immune? Right, so we have a keystone called Chaos Inoculation, which turns our life to 1. Because we are an energy shield build, we invest only in energy shield, we don't need life, so we sacrifice that in exchange for chaos and poison immunity. So as you can see, this makes us immune to chaos damage over time, poison, desecrated ground, caustic ground, and it's pretty cool actually. We are elemental ailment immune by using this jewel called Storm Shroud. It's something that not many players know about, but it's very interesting. It gives us chance to avoid all elemental ailments if we have 100% chance to avoid shock. So all we have to do is we have to cap our chance to avoid shock, and this costs us exactly 2 jewel sockets and 2 implicits on your boots. So as you can see here, we have 48% chance to avoid shock from 1 abyssal jewel, right, along with some nice mods that work with this build like energy shield, crit multi, or whatever you have. And we get 52% chance to avoid shock from your boots. So this can be crafted with the lesser embers and ichors, and it's very cheap really. And then you can fine tune the rolls by using a blessed orb, right? Even blessed orbs are cheap. So this is something that's really easy to obtain, and this will give you 100% elemental ailment immunity. We are curse immune from a flask from our Pantheon, since we've taken Ugul, and from another flask called Bottled Faith, which gives us consecrated ground. Now that we've understood the basic way the build works and the effects, let's jump into the gear. The first gear we have is Ephemeral Edge, which is a unique sword that gives us lightning damage based on our energy shield. And this is build defining. I don't think you can swap this out with a rare. The next one we have is Aegis Aurora Shield, which gives us 32% base block chance with gain ES on block based on your armor. So by scaling up our armor, right, we have 22,000 armor right now, and that gives us approximately 400 ES on block. You can scale your armor up even higher to get even more ES on block. Anathema Ring is only used because we have multi-curses, and we want to curse the enemy to reduce their resistance, right? Now since this whole build scales with energy shield, both our defense and our damage scales up as we scale up our energy shield, I wanted to include some really high ES items into this build. So the first one is Whispers of Infinity, which is a new amulet introduced in this league, and it gives you approximately 430 base ES, flat ES. Okay, and the rare belt gives us a lot of flat ES and some strength, because it's really hard to get strength, and it saves you some skill points on the skill tree. To understand how the Ephemeral Edge sword works, you need to buy one with at least a 1.33 attack speed, and 1.4 is best. This is because there are some enchants and some things that corrupted mods that improve the base attack speed, and attack speed scales the entire build, right? So this is the most important mod. The second most important mod is lightning damage equal to 15% of your max ES. This mod is actually heavily nerfed, but we still try to get the best roll that we can. So a 10% or a 13% isn't going to cut it. You need 15%, right? And the last mod, increased max ES, 40 is the base, but 45 and above is good to have. Now for the Whispers of Infinity amulet, there are ways to buy it that's super expensive. For example, if you just sort by maximum energy shield, you can buy one that's 10 div, 50 div, whatever, right? The prices are ridiculous and is actually overpriced. So to buy a good roll, what you do is you use the search that I've given you, and we use max quality 0, right? Because we don't want ones that are qualitied up. And you buy a 0 quality one which has a high base roll, like you can see here, this 394 roll. And then when you use tempering catalysts on it, which are quite cheap, you can get the max roll for a discounted price. And then what you do is you anoint it with this node called Arcane Focus. Now let's get on to our multi-curse setup. Multi-curse is something that costs us 1 ring slot and a couple of skill gems, but it's really useful when you don't have a Merc to reduce your enemy res, right? So we do have a Merc, but we don't rely on the Merc. So this is where a lot of our damage comes from. We have Assassin's Mark, which improves our critical strike, which is automatically cast on hit, because that's how we've set it up. The other three curses, conductivity, elemental weakness, and punishment, you have to manually cast using Arcanist brand. You can use a rare ring. So there are two types of rare rings. You have the ES or the int stacking rare ring, and then you have the crit stacking rare ring. But since we are a crit build, I found in my testing that crit stacking works best. And as you can see, it has a lot of crit strike multi and some intelligence and energy shield. And then the last mod you can craft is like crafted damage. So this is a very high damage ring that you can use. You can go crazy on the rare ring slot, and that's something I recommend. This single ring gives you 10 million DPS on this build because it's a massive crit stacking, attack speed, and ES stacking ring. So there's another item I want to talk about. It's called Chevron's Revelation. It's the ultimate ES stacking ring in my opinion. It has a massive amount of energy shield and some intelligence, both of which are great for our build. The only downside is it blocks ES regen. So it's bad for bossing, it's bad for Ubers, T17, everything. So this is why I haven't included it. It's a great item and you should know about it. Now, if you want to do only T16 content or maybe T16.5, like basically map clear, like Blight, Abyss, all of that stuff, you may not need so much regen. So what you could do is you could use Chevron's Revelation and invest fully into Leech. And then you take the Ghost Reaver Keystone, which doubles your Leech. So this is a great way to get a huge amount of energy shield if you're going with a fully Leech based build. And this option I'll leave up to you. Now let's get into the gear for the build. I'll explain the most important mods you need to have on your gear, something that even I figured out as I went along. And the first and most important mod on your gloves is attack speed. As you can see here, 17% attack speed is more than 800,000 DPS, like almost a million DPS from this one mod, right? So you need to have attack speed on your gloves, even if it has like 50 energy shield or 100 energy shield. Find something that has a very high attack speed roll. Your gloves also need accuracy to help us cap our hit chance. So approximately 400 accuracy should do. And what we craft onto it with our Icos is lightning exposure on hit and strike skills target one additional enemy. For our helmet slot, we basically have a very fat ES helmet, like the one on the left. All of this is real gear. It's not theory crafted. It's really the gear that I have or that I had at some point. And so if I can afford it, you can definitely afford it. And what we have is a lot of ES. We have some int, right? And then we have some resistance, and you have increased mana reservation because we need to stack like 4 auras, effects, whatever. And you have increased AoE. For our boots, we have basically an int stacking boot. So you have a lot of energy shield plus int, which is a suffix. And then the remaining suffixes, you need to have, good rolls of resistance. And what we do is we craft using Icos, this 52% chance to avoid shock. And like I said before, you can use Blessed Orbs to fine tune the values, the numeric values. Now for our belt slot, we use an Abyssal Vice, which allows us to have an eye socketed in for even more damage and even more energy shield. So on average, this gives you around 100 energy shield if you count the belt and the eye. You need to have strength on it, and then any other damage mods and resistances. Great, now that we've finished discussing all the accessories, let's move on to the body armor. The body armor is the most important piece in this entire build, and it's also the most expensive. The first one I bought was like 4 div, then I bought one for 10 div. So obviously there is no cap. You can buy one for 100 div and has better mods and better stats. So this is something that's nice because you can keep upgrading it, right? We're not using a unique body armor, which I don't really like. So our body armor should have a very high evasion and energy shield roll. Due to our Trickster Ascendancy, we can gain ES based on our evasion. So that's how it works. So the more evasion you have, you get more energy shield as well. So we are not really using dodge in this build, right? We're not using dodge because we convert evasion to armor. So we get very high physical damage reduction, like 90% PDR. We get high ES. So the key thing to understand is we're not really using evasion for dodge. Okay, so for your armor, you want something like this. You want high evasion, ES, you want intelligence, which is nice to have. Instead of intelligence, you can have spell suppress, right? Maybe 20% spell suppress would be nice. Then the others, you just have res, and a crafted suffix is good if you want to keep changing your suffix, like you want to change your res or you want attributes or whatever. Now I'll explain how the body armor works. So this build is a little bit special. I've given you 2 sets of gem links. one which works with 4 reds and one that works with 5 reds, and both have comparable DPS, so there's no sacrifice. And whatever you do when you buy a body armor, you have to buy one that already has one of these 2 sets of colors, right? And do not use chromes or bench crafting. So to craft this is very, very difficult. You need to use the off socket crafting method and then 1500 fusings or something to link those sockets. Right, so getting to our gem links, as I said, we have 2 sets. The first set is 4 red and 2 blue, the one which I have. And it's quite common to find a lot of body armors on trade that you can buy with this set of colors. So we used increased critical damage, which is our blue gem, which is also very powerful. And if you so happen to have a 5 red body armor, then you can use damage on full life. On this screen, I've listed all of the other gem links that you have. You can copy this blindly. All of them are easy to craft. It's just the gloves that are very painful. So I'll include a short video next and I'll show you how you can use off-socket crafting with jeweler orbs to craft your glove socket colors. The others are just, well, you have our supporting skills like Tempest Shield, Arcanist Brand, Assassin's Mark, all of those things. And then you have Leap Slam, which is our main movement skill, which is really fun to use and you can use it unlimited times. Okay, so now that you've understood how all the gem links work and everything, let's say you want to buy a body armor, right? How do you buy one? So you search for necrotic armor on the trade site and you type in your values of 2900 evasion and 400 energy shield. So you can lower this value if you're seeing crazy prices, something that you can't afford. Keep lowering these 2 values until you get something affordable. In sockets, we write 401. Okay, now we want minimum 4 red and at least 1 blue and 0 green. So this will give us a search that will automatically find either of the 2 body armors that are compatible with our build. Phew, if you made it this far, congrats. Let's just watch some gameplay and take a short break, yeah?
Might makes right. Gaze into the imperfect. Must be sacrificed. Gaze. They're coming.
Alright, now that we've finished discussing our gear, let's move on to the skill tree. So this build is dependent on cluster jewels. We have 3 cluster jewels which have very powerful mods, and the way you buy it is you need to buy ones that have this 12% increase attack damage, and it needs to be 8 node, right? You cannot buy 9 or 10 node because they'll waste our very precious skill points. So the first set of cluster jewels, we need 2 jewels with the following mods: Fuel the Fight, Martial Prowess, and Prodigious Defense. And the most important mod on this is the attack speed, right? The secondary mod is Accuracy, which helps us cap our hit chance. And the other mods are just supporting mods. And the next set of cluster jewels we want one of them with Veteran Defender. This is an idea from Lily actually, and it gives us more energy shield, it gives us attributes and res. Now for the medium cluster jewels, I've given you 2 different options. One of them is expensive, one of them is cheaper. Obviously the expensive one has more damage, so you can pick one based on your budget, but whatever you pick, we need 2 of these. Now for our flask setup, we have 4 magic flasks, which again works well with Mageblood if you have it, or if you want to have it, and we have 1 unique flask. So initially when leveling, you might want Rumi's Concoction, which gives you better block, which means you'll die less. And once your build is ready or you have the money, just buy a Bottled Faith, a very high rolled Bottled Faith with 10% increased damage taken. That's the important mod. And all flasks need the enchant used when charges reach full, but your unique flask needs the enchant, like Bottled Faith needs the enchant used when you hit a rare or unique enemy. The suffixes required are Stun, Curses, Evasion, and Armor. That's because, well, you want some immunity, and the Evasion and Armor help us leech more energy shield. Now for the Mercenary gearing. You want a Striker Merc, which is a melee guy, and they are tanky and they survive a lot, and it just works well with this build. And you want them to have minus 200 lightning res along with Doriani's prototype, which is a unique body armor. So what this does is when any enemies are close to the Merc, their lightning res will be dropped to minus 200, which makes your damage much more, right? It's just a free damage multiplier. If you don't want to use this, don't use it. It's fine. If you want to use some other type of Merc or some other build, it's fine. But this is some portion of the damage. Around 30% of our damage comes from this Mercenary, right? So it's free damage and it's nice to have. The rest of the gears mentioned here, and I'll just walk you through it. We have a one-handed sword as a weapon. Now since the Mercenary can only deal lightning damage, which is a restriction from the body armor, we just get a sword with maximum lightning damage and attack speed, crit multi, accuracy, whatever, right? All of the good stats. And I've shown you a sample over here. You can copy that. For the Merc Amulet and Rings, we have a cheap option which is shown here. I found that minus 100 rings are much more expensive than minus 100 amulets, right? So I have one minus 100 amulet and then a minus 60 ring. This cost me around 3 to 4 div total. So this is something that's quite cheap. And this allowed me to get my lightning res cap to 200. And I found this better than using Perkle's Toe. So the resistance is more important because we are doing a lot of the damage, right? The other option is the best in slot option, which is very expensive. These rings may be anywhere from 10 div to 100 div, which is a perfect 100 minus 100 lightning res ring with damage recouped. Now what damage recoup does is every time the Merc takes damage, it heals up. So it is said to make it immortal. I don't know because I haven't tested it, but the other players have told me this. And then you get a Kalandra's Touch to just duplicate this ring because it's too expensive and you can't buy 2 of them. And Perkle's Toe gives you lightning damage with hits is lucky, so that kind of improves your damage as well, right? So this is like the expensive option if you want to invest in that. Alright, now for the Merc stats, you need to stack armor, life and life regen. Because of the Doriani's mod that says that armor applies to lightning damage, we try to stack armor to help the Merc survive. And this is the kind of gear that I have. It's all like very cheap, like maybe 5 chaos, 10 chaos or whatever. You can surely buy better stuff for your Merc if you want to. If you have better ideas on uniques that you want your Merc to wear, you can use that as well. But I found that when I use Headhunter for mapping, with this build it's extremely fun, and you can have like 10 times the normal attack speed and you're just blowing up entire maps, and it works really well with this build. So if you plan on using a Mageblood with this build, I've listed some of the recommended flask suffixes. Important to note that we don't need poison immune because CI gives us poison immunity for free. We just need elemental ailment immune from shock, stun immune, curse immune, and then the last flask you can either go with more armor or critical strike chance, depending on if you want more ES on block or more DPS. Now for the FAQs, I'll try to address all of the common questions and how this build works. The first common question is, how do I scale DPS, right? From an understanding point of view, attack speed. Attack speed is the biggest boost to this build. Get AS on every jewel, on every item, everywhere you can fit AS, get AS. And as you can see here, every 1% attack speed gives us 50,000 more DPS, approximately, as per POB. Every 1% crit multi gives us 10,000 more DPS, and every 1 flat ES gives us 2,000 more DPS. Okay, now this is because we are not an int stacker build really. We've not gone up to 1,000, 2,000 int. We are more of a crit stacker. Therefore, ES and int stacking doesn't really work very well here. How do you scale defense? Number 1, block. We invest quite heavily in block, and many nodes on the skill tree are for block. So yeah, improve your block and at least have 70-50 block. The reason why we can get away with such low spell block is because we have very high spell suppression. You can get approximately 90 spell suppress just from the skill tree, and you can get 100% using gear mods. And lastly, improve your energy shield. The more ES you have a bigger health pool. Even if you do get hit, chances are the hit won't be fatal. How do you get more block? So most of the block comes from the skill tree and the shield, and the cluster jewels also have block on them, so we invest quite heavily in block, and you should get a decent amount of block just from there. If you want more, you can use this jewel called Replica Reckless Defense. And lastly, Rumi's Concoction, which is what I use when leveling. You can see like a 10-6 roll or something, which helps you get much more block and be much more tanky. Great, you're sold. So how do you get started? Okay, so to get started, you have to make a new shadow character, complete the axe, and level up to 70 using lightning arrow, which in my experience I found is the fastest and easiest way to do the acts. If you have another skill that you know, sure, do it. Level up to 84 using breach stones. Now I got from 70 to 84 very quickly just by running like 10 or 20 breaches with some friends. Somewhere between 80 to 84 you can swap to Smite. That's because most of your endgame gear, if you have purchased it, will have a minimum level requirement of 84. At this point you're going to completely redo your skill tree from your leveling gear, right? And use your endgame gear and your endgame build gems and all that stuff. And then you can level up to 90 or even 100 using Abyss. So for the Ascendancy, we're going to be using Trickster, which gives us more energy shield based on our evasion. It gives us very strong ES leech, perhaps one of the strongest in the game. And it has some other, damage boosting nodes. Now, when you're doing the lab, if you can wear 2 of these Kikazaru rings shown on the bottom, you'll be like basically immortal. As you can see, I'm dancing around these traps and laughing because they aren't doing any damage. That's because these 2 rings give me such a high life regen that you can be practically immune to these traps. Now let's see the leveling uniques that you need for lightning arrow. This is exactly what I used, and I can guarantee that it works. But I found leveling with lightning arrow and a bow the easiest and the fastest way for shadow. So these are the uniques that you can get. They're all cheap. 7 league step may be expensive. You can swap that out for any other boots if you like. And all the other the gear is just very basic. Roth's Reach and the first quiver is going to be used right from Act 1, and then you transition over to Death's Harp and Rear Guard for the later acts. In order to level up your shadow with lightning arrow easily, you can use the skill gems that I've shown you. From Act 1 onwards, you can use the ones on the left, and then Act 8 onwards, you can change your gems. At that point of time, you'll have approximately +4 arrows from your skill tree and Death's Harp bow, and so you can take out the multiple projectiles gem and instead swap to some damage gems. Here are the leveling skill gems that you need for movement, for auras, and for flasks. Let's begin with the lightning arrow skill tree. So from Act 1, you're going to follow this skill tree and you're going to upgrade your character. You take life and some damage nodes. Then we move on, we get a jewel socket. We take energy from within, which allows us to level up our intelligence gems. You take some more damaging nodes. You take +1 arrow, leech, various things. So I've mentioned the masteries that you need. You can follow it over here. On the last page, we have some spell suppression and damage.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to live this out. We got this far, don't know
Blast. Withstand the siege. Your destination is more dangerous than the journey, Ascendant.
Somewhere between level 80 to 84, you're going to switch to Smite. And this is the first tree that you can use, assuming you have no cluster jewels, right? If you do have cluster jewels, then you can just refer to the POB and copy that. But if you don't have cluster jewels, this is like a purely skill tree only version. Then we go down the skill tree and take a lot of the nodes that we need for the end game as well. Now to end the skill tree, we just go down the skill tree, we take some spell suppression, we take block, and we take iron reflexes. This is very important because it converts your evasion to armor and gives us very high physical damage reduction. And finally, for our end game skill tree. And I've mentioned all the important nodes as well as the masteries. You'll need a rune graft of the fortress, which improves your energy shield at the cost of some attributes. On the second page, you see we have some spell suppress, and then you have some accuracy and crit chance, right? And on the last page, you have block and iron reflexes. So a very good way to level up and get tons and tons of very high tier but yet easy monsters is Abyss. It's a method that I just discovered and it's really enjoyable, and you can do it for many hours at a time. And unlike Breach, it doesn't require any much investment and it doesn't require any player group. You can do it solo. So for Abyss farming, you're going to use the following scarabs and the following map device craft. So in this atlas tree, you can see we have taken most of the Abyss nodes, as well as a lot of nodes that drop scarabs, and then some map nodes. You just can't go on the trade site and search for Calm and Lethal Pride and get something. You're going to get crap, you're going to get trash that doesn't do anything for your build. So do not buy jewels from the trade site. Instead, you have to open the timeless jewel calculator. You can just Google it, and you have to select your sockets and your nodes and everything, the nodes that you want. And then you're going to use the given search terms, which is 1 strength and at least 2 double damage. Double damage is the best mod for this build, and you need at least 1 strength mod because we have trouble stacking strength. The first set of upgrades you're going to need are cluster jewels, and the next upgrade should be Storm Shroud. Storm Shroud will be a few divs, but it will give you elemental ailment immunity, which is huge, which will allow you to do many more map mods easily, and you'll die far less, and mapping will be much more enjoyable when you have ailment immunity. 2020 skill gems are important. What I did was I bought like level 1 20% quality gems for some of them. The next upgrade you're going to want to buy is body armor. And you need something with 3000 or more evasion and 600 or more energy shield. Those are the important stats. Next, you want to get Bottled Faith. Bottled Faith is a massive boost to my DPS. Next, you want a Watcher's Eye. So there is this mod that says gain a flask charge on crit while using precision. This is amazing because if you don't have a mage blood, then this is the best mod because it's like a mini mage blood, right? It carries your flasks and you have nearly constant flask uptime. Even during bossing, for example, when you're not killing enemies, right? You're not getting normal flask charges, but this mod will give you flask charges. So I think that's amazing. And the second mod is either attack damage or crit multi or something. I found attack damage was the best in slot. Lethal Pride, as I mentioned before, double damage mod is best in slot. And lastly, you'll want to buy Light of Meaning. And now for the end game upgrades. Awakened skill gems will give you more damage, but they're very expensive, some of them. Ephemeral Edge with Resolute Technique. So Resolute Technique is an implicit, a corrupted implicit. But if you're going to buy one of these, it needs to be 15%, right? I don't care what the attack speed is or what anything else is, but if it's not 15%, your entire damage is going to come down. Alright, let's say you made the build, but you're doing Z DPS and your damage really sucks. This is an FAQ that's going to cover all the important points that you need to make sure that you have in your build. The first thing is you need to cap your hit chance. If your hit chance is 80%, you're going to be doing like 50% damage, something like that. You need to have 100% hit chance, and then you'll see a drastic improvement in your damage, right? To cap hit chance, you need an accuracy mod in your gloves or somewhere, and you need to get more skill points invested into hit chance. Next, activate all your buffs. Next is a sword called Rebuke of the Val. It's just a cheap unique. Okay, you can sort by total DPS when you're buying it to buy a high DPS roll. But this unique sword can be used in place of EE if your energy shield is less than 5000, right? Because in this case, EE is going to be doing very low damage. And EE is not a magical sword, it just works if you have high energy shield. If you have low energy shield, it's pretty shit, and you're gonna want to use this sword to level up. Energy Blade. Energy Blade is something that even I use when leveling. It's a gem, it's just a 1-link gem, you dump it in, you activate it. It will double your DPS, flat out double your DPS, and flat out halve your ES. So if you have, say, 10,000 energy shield, suddenly your energy shield turns to 5,000, but your damage will double. So if you have, say, 2 million DPS, now you have 4 million DPS. So it's very helpful when leveling up, right? It's very helpful to help you get better map clear and kill more mobs and get more XP. But later on, you'll have to probably turn it off to get your original energy shield values back up. Now level up your gems. As you can see over here, I've written some stats, even on my endgame gear. You can see that level 1 gems do like hardly 10% of the damage, right? So this is something because like when I started off and I had all level 1 gems and I was doing Z DPS, I was tearing my hair out, right? And as I leveled up, as I did a lot of Abyss and a lot of maps and leveled up my gems, leveled up my character, my damage greatly improved, right? So even on an end game character with end game gear and clusters and everything, if you have level 1 gems, you're going to be doing shit DPS. So gem levels are very important for this. So when you get to around level 90 or higher, you'll kind of have a good time. Alright, if you made it this far, congrats, thank you for watching, and I hope you had a good time. So I really hope that this helps you, and I hope that you're able to create a character that's affordable and high DPS and tanky, and a character that helps you blast through the game and have a great time. So that's all for today. Thank you and see you again soon.